pal. I'm not that formal a person. Just as a quick aside before we go into it, talking about intellectual freedom, I think the best idea I ever had was to do a research project on whether books that the materials you could buy at the checkout line in the Kroger at Woodward and 13 were held by libraries, the junk periodicals and the books. And the answer I discovered was that there was one periodical that 3 million people bought every week that no library in 1992 said they held a copy.
What was that?
The Star.
The Star.
I replicated the study about 3 or 4 years ago, and they do hold the Star, but there's still a fair number of them that libraries don't collect. Okay, let me tell you what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. The first thing is that this is really a work in progress. And so that Paul Beavers and I, who is in the library system, are already working on sending out a questionnaire to faculty members to see whether our thoughts about this are correct or not. But I would like to tell you where I am already, and I have some informal sense that my hypothesis is true. I also like to thank the Humanities Center because I worked on this while I was a resident scholar. So this was my research project for last year when I was a resident scholar. This is tied to my research on the internet out-of-print book market because after I wrote the article that talked about how much prices had come down, which was 45% in inflation-adjusted dollars since my 2 samples in 1982 and 1992. And also the fact that the distinction between in-print and out-of-print had almost disappeared because in all 4 of my samples, 95% of the materials were available. So there really is high availability of items on the out-of-print book market, and Google Books is even going to make materials more available. So basically, we are reaching a point where almost anything that you want that's been published since 1900 is available, and lots of stuff published before that is also available. And so in doing what professors always do in checking my citations, I actually found a paper where the person then had hypothesized that this would mean that faculty would be purchasing less materials, would be getting more for themselves and less from the library. And so this is an attempt to follow up on that. As far as a bit of my anecdotal evidence, a faculty member at Wayne who will remain anonymous, because I still select for Romance languages because of my PhD in French, basically seemed to show no interest in a grant that was available to buy materials for this faculty member's area. And I really had some trouble figuring it all out. Well, later on, we worked a bit more closely together on a project, and she said, I don't use the library. If I want anything, I just buy it myself. My materials are cheap enough that I just get it, and so I didn't need the books from you people, so I didn't really think it was worth my time to follow up on this grant. I'm also actually going to talk a bit about graduate students, but I'm going to have just 1 or 2 comments, so this is not a major part of my talk. And the other thing is I really hope that I can get some feedback from you. Talking about feedback, and one of the reasons why I'm pleased is that I just came back from a conference called the Charleston Conference, which is the best conference I attend each year, and it brings together publishers, librarians, vendors, and other scholars in the area of scholarly communication. And I gave basically the same talk I'm giving today. And I actually had one of the plenary speakers come up to me afterwards and tell me that this was consistent with his research on the market for university press books. So that pleased me greatly, as did the number of people that showed up, because it was more than I expected. And actually the audience seemed happier with my program than I had hoped for. So I left the session a very, very pleased scholar. What I would like, I'm using the big word, disintermediation from the library. And this has been something that's been happening in other areas over the last few years. The first is that there is less dependence upon the physical library. Think of what it was like before 1994 in the internet. You had no choice but to go to the library, and you had to find the citations for the journals, and you had to find the print journals, and if you wanted copies, you had to take them to the photocopy machine. And if you wanted a book, you had to look it up, and you had to go to the stacks and get the physical book. Or, if you were a faculty member with good grant support, you sent your graduate student to do it. But somebody had to come and deal with the physical resources. So that one of the big changes is that there are so many more online resources that many people, including me, the first thing we do is we try to do all of our research by using the vast array of excellent resources that the library provides for us, plus at times the free resources available on the internet. In my past, I actually did a research project that caused me to write a paper that said how Google improved my scholarship, because I was doing some specific work where really I could do much. I got lots of great information from Google that I couldn't get from the published literature, because the published literature is always about how we did it good, and Google told me how we did it not so good and how we did it actually bad. And so that's another thing. I also believe that in the scholarly community, even in the humanities, there may be a decreasing importance of the monograph. And part of the reason for the decreasing importance of the monograph is that there are fewer of them being published, and there are fewer of them that libraries are acquiring. So that one of the topics at the conference, as it's been for many years, is how university presses are going to stay in business. And actually, some of them haven't stayed in business and have gone out of business, or they have been merged with stronger units and they're no longer independent. This year also, from my perception, is the year of the e-book. This is, for me, the tipping point. It's this year that e-books really have become an important new way for libraries of all types, academic, mostly, some for public, and even for school. And so the e-books have come of age, and there's many sources for them, and we'll talk more about that later. The final thing, and while this may be more true of students than it is of faculty, I'm quite sure that some faculty and many students have no idea that the resources that they get at Wayne are because the Wayne State University library system pays for them. If the faculty are aware of the resources, I'm not sure if they are aware how much they cost, because it's over $7 million. And so looking at the Wayne State budget, this actually has been one of the libraries for the last decade that has moved more quickly than many other libraries into providing digital resources. If I'm remembering the figure correctly that I saw last week, 87.5% of our collection development budget goes towards e-resources. Why might faculty buy their own books? Well, the first reason, and this ties into my internet research, is that they have become cheap. This will mostly be out of print books, but remember, you can get anything. And if you go on Amazon, I suspect that everyone in this room would find useful books, perhaps even useful books for their research, that they could get for a penny plus $3.99 shipping. I've actually looked into the question of how people can make money on those books, and actually the only way you can do it is sell lots and lots of books, and then you get bulk rate postage from the post office, and you can make enough from the shipping. On the other hand, the person in the next office to mine got a book for $3.99, and it cost $2.96 to mail. I know the minimum Amazon commission for a penny book is $1.35, and he bought a mailer, so they lost money, so I'm not sure why they were doing it. So that the books are cheap. They're not as expensive as they used to be. And as I said, you can find the book